It has been 93 days since Chris last, It has been 93 days since Chris has been in custody. 9 days since Chris last wrote a letter from jail. And there's no third thing anymore. Welcome to the Chris Chan Monthly Update. My name is GiBi. As a reminder, Chris's pre-trial hearing is on November 18th. I know most people are tired of hearing it, but it's my responsibility as someone perpetuating information about Chris to say this. Don't go to the hearing. Do not interrupt official court proceedings. Do not write trollish letters to Chris. Leave him alone. If the previous hearing date was any indication, then it is very likely that somebody like Ethan Ralph will be at the courthouse. There will of course be actual journalists there. There is no reason for more people to show up. We're here to watch what happens to Chris, not make Christery ourselves. I've covered a few letters that Chris has written while in prison, including his new delusion that he is literally Jesus. For those of you just joining us, Chris has actually thought that he was a god-tier level deity for several years now, but it appears that he now thinks that he is actually Jesus Christ because he has been reading the Bible in jail. Since then, a group of people decided that they wanted to convert Chris to Islam. Even if we give these people the benefit of the doubt and say that they are practicing members of their faith who heard about Chris's circumstances and actually want to help, which is the best possible motivation that we could give them, it is still very sketchy that they leaked Chris's letter. One of them actually DM'd me on Twitter with Chris's response to them. They just want this to be covered on YouTube and to be a part of Christery, and covering people like that just further motivates them to do more. For that reason, I'm going to cover these letters the same way that many journalists cover mass shootings. I will not be giving attention to the people who clearly want it, and will instead just be reading Chris's responses. I'm only giving enough context so that you guys can understand him. These people do not deserve attention. They are not like Sockness or Bella, who needed information about them to be spread so that they could be stopped. And so, once again, this is Chris's response to a group of people who want to convert him to Islam. By his writing, we can tell that this is not his first letter to them. Let's see what he has to say. And yes, this is going to be my first time reading through it. Alright, so this was written on October 3rd. The last response I have received from thee was one that was most filled with bad vibes, yet I am not at all shaken. I tell you once more, I meditate a lot, and I have connected with this and all universes and dimensions in this timeline, as well as the entire multiverse. So I speak only greatest and ultimate truths. Absolutely no lies, illusions, nor delusions at all. That makes me think that in their letter to him, their last correspondence with him, the one with all the bad vibes, they said that he was delusional, either because he said he was Jesus or just his powers in general. So these people, the convert to Islam people, are actually, like, being legit and trying to get him to stop doing what he's doing. And it's not gonna work. It will never work. Chris will not change. I genuinely know who and what I am, deepest and fully. And not only am I the goddess Blueheart of the Commodore consoles and the nations of Quickville and Old Comma, but I am also, and mainly, the real Player One, the one avatar. This body is the one God body. I am the full reincarnation of none other than Jesus Christ of Nazareth himself. I am God, and my mom is Emmanuel, God above gods, including Allah herself. So Chris thinks that God, like the Christian theistic God, is female. That's why he says, my mom is Emmanuel, God above gods. Like, saying that the Christian God, or the Christian God, is above the Islam God in some sort of pantheon that can somehow contain all of them, is completely incomprehensible. And I often speak and work with all of the other gods and goddesses. Allah is a good God, yes, but even he has his imperfection and concerns over his followers, and nationality of Islam. So Allah can be a male god, but the Christian God has to be a female god? I'm not understanding. He and I both know that Islam contains a total population that includes around 40% of toxic He and I both know that Islam contains a total population that includes around 40% of toxic haters, fakers, and sinners within it. He's either saying that 40% of Islamists are toxic haters, fakers, and sinners, or he's saying that 40% of the world's toxic haters, fakers, and sinners are Muslim. I don't know which is worse. And the total fallout and conflicts within are certainly not too good. Rather thou... so this is a thing Chris always does for you new people. Instead of saying whether, he says rather. So, rather thou wishes instead of whether thou wishes. Rather thou wishes to believe or not, between both the dimension merge, which is completed, all that remains of universe 1218 is the failing Earth, period. So we're dimension 1218, so he's saying that all that remains of our universe... My microphone just fell, I'm sure that was a great noise. He's saying that all that remains of our universe, 1218, is the failing Earth. Universe 1C211987, and its Earth, is where all of the non-toxic majority shall be collectively shifted to, and are at present with these events. Okay, interesting thing to discuss right now. Super fascinating. So Chris's thing this whole time has been that if you're a good person, then you will survive the dimensional merge. That our universe, which is 1218, which is taken from Marvel's way of numbering universes, will merge with Universe C197, which is taken from Rick and Morty's way of numbering universes, and Universe C197 is where most fictional characters live. And our universes are going to combine so that we, the good people of this reality, will be able to exist in this sort of heaven-like universe with all these fictional characters. But the bad people of this reality, so the trollers, the haters, the fakers, will not survive the merge. It seems like he has retconned this a bit, so that the haters and fakers and bad people are instead of dying, they're being left behind in this universe, in 1218, on the failing Earth, which I also assume that he thinks will eventually just crumble into nothingness. In order for him to believe this, he would have to think that the good people of this universe have already gone over to the combined dimension of 1C211987. And because he's in jail, there's no counter to this fact. There's no counter evidence. He's not talking to the people he thinks are good, he's only talking to the trolls. Therefore, he is allowed to delude himself into thinking that the only people who still exist on this plane of reality are the trolls who are in contact with him. The trolls and probably his lawyer and the jail guards. And then obviously he himself does not count because he's a god. So he's allowing himself to be deluded by this, and he's telling himself that all of the good people of the Earth that he was walking among in July have been shifted into this better dimension, and that the only people who are left behind are the bad people. That's my interpretation. That's the only interpretation that I would understand from what he said. But that's weird. If he's in prison for any extended period of time, he will probably continue to convince himself that the only people left on the outside of the prison are bad people. If he gets released from prison, then I have absolutely no idea how he will reconcile with the fact that he thinks the merge is already complete. So that's fun. I bring, personally, the Second Coming, and at present, we are at Malachi 3 and 4 of the Old Testament, literally. If you want to know what those are, just watch my last video, because I read them, and the comments were super happy about that, and definitely not annoyed that I took a pause in my video to read from the Bible. I continue my hardest of work and efforts alongside and with everyone between both this Earth of 1218 and the Earth of 1C211987. Meditate long, deep, and hard on that to confirm for yourselves. My body writes this with my telepathy, guiding its thoughts and hand with an ally, holy flame soul maintaining it on my behalf. Alongside Allah, I can save most to all of you of this project of yours, but you need to be open for all gods in order for me to do so. The choice is yours. Yeah, in order to survive, you just gotta believe in multiple monotheistic gods. That makes perfect sense, Chris. Thank you. I'll do that. He then drew this little picture of the cross and says, Mrs. Jesus Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu, Goddess of Blue Heart and Lord of all. Next up, we have a letter from an overt troll, because making inside jokes to Chris that he doesn't get is apparently still funny after 15 years. Wow, so clever, you wrote Ian Brandon Anderson in Arabic and got Chris to hang it on his wall, maybe. That's real funny. This guy asked Chris if he ever cut a hole into one of his dolls and used it as a sex toy. And by doll, I mean something like this, like a child's toy. This was Chris's response. To answer your question, and you may share it online if you wish, the Luann Loud plush, as well as all of my plushes throughout my present immortal life. Is he implying that Jesus owned plushies? I don't like that. As well as all of my plushes throughout my present immortal life have never ever been cut open at all, nor have any of them been violated, defaced, or abused sexually at all. This is factually incorrect. He tore up a Sonic doll because it had blue arms. I would call that violated, defaced, and cut open. Chris says, there was no discourse. This is in reference to the guy who wrote the letter, saying that there was discourse about whether or not Chris did something to this doll. I don't know if there was or not. I don't browse 4chan. But Chris saying that there was no discourse is silly because he was, in jail. There was no discourse. The Luna Loud plush was, literally, a gift from another one of my kind followers, because they saw a similarity in the humor aspect between I and her. I have my morals, especially being the full reincarnation of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and God of all, including you. So he's saying that because he's Jesus, he has enough morals that he would never violate a plush doll, but not enough that he wouldn't have sex with his mother. Regardless, I appreciate your blessing and prayer in Arabic. I have an open mind for all religions and spiritualities, as I am multifaceted. Thank you, kindly. I offer you a direct blessing in return, and then the guy's name. Visually, I draw it in my neo-spirituality/updated Christianity symbol, but its main manifestation is in the form of a small share of my own aura and vibrations. Go forth with peace and clarity by my power and glory as God. Guys, this next letter is so insane that I literally could not read it live while also comprehending what it was saying. I tried recording my live reaction to it, but I just could not, so unfortunately you're gonna have to settle for me just reading it into my microphone. This is a long one, and we have significantly less context. What we do know is that somebody wrote a letter to Chris and asked him 6 questions. Chris then took several days to answer these questions. Apparently, he had run out of paper and envelopes. Chris does a pretty good job at painting a picture of what he was doing while he was reading the letter, so let's just get started. I had received your letter earlier today and have just read through it over a couple of sandwiches. I write this now with continued sound mind and body and soul on this partial sheet torn from the photocopy of the letter's envelope while the response is fresh. Short on full, blank paper on envelopes at the moment. I will write more in a couple of days after receiving more paper and envelopes. Now, for genuine, on the level and down to this earth preface, directly to you, the person's name. I do meditate innately, consciously and involuntarily, spelled wrong, and constantly, and have all of my life. So I do have direct access to and with this Earth, both of our Earths of the recombining universe, the entire multiverse, the Akashic records, and all other greater and ultimate knowledge, insights, and wisdoms. Skimming through Wikipedia, it looks like this is some mixture of occultism and Hinduism and Buddhism that came up from Russians in the 1900s. Within that religion, the Akashic records are a compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future. I have absolutely no idea how Chris came to stumble upon this obscure religion. Don't ask me. But he's saying that he uses his magic powers to gaze into the universe and multiverse so he knows everything. I don't know why he needs a book if he can do that, but whatever. He's comparing his own powers to that of the person who wrote the Akashic records, I guess. So I do not just believe. I know, full and certain, with absolutely no delusions, illusions, or lies. Illusions. And I only speak true and fact, as aside from same future spoiler details not yet to be publicly revealed that I am not allowed to divulge. Okay, so this clearly says some spoiler details. The transcription on the Quickie has it as same, someone should go fix that. I, personally, have nothing or very little to hide. So the only things he can't tell us are things about the future that are spoilers. So anything. That's always his excuse. That being stated, I shall initially open by answering your 6th and 4th questions, since the two are sharing in similar details. Again, we don't know what these questions are. In regards to online fame or infamy, yes, I do realize, and have accepted, that in a certain extent of the damage and chaos that had come upon myself on this earth was, in fact, my fault and bad in sharing too much conscious honesty during those respective years in pertinence to what had been present then. Consciously naive, ADD, OCD, tunnel vision, in reference to and on top of my innate meditations, my brain was still a work in progress with the cacophony of many details. And what was right in front of my body and happening took a lot of attention from me. I was simply still soul-searching, exploring, and in remaining in observation and testing of others in mindset up until about 2011 or 2014. I did not like to lie, so honest and benefiting of the doubt I was. I know my faults. I am certainly no Mary Sue, and that case was the same of me in Israel over 2,000 years ago. Yet, even if I had not divulged so many truth bombs in honesty, and encounter in late 2007 and early 2008, the results being chronicled and famous still have transpired anyways, as had my followers started following me in my past life as well. The partial lack of focus on the books is found in what I had stated above. I know I am better than some to most, but I still have room for self-improvement. So that was the end of the first letter, and so he starts the second one 2 days later. He says, "As I have written a couple of days ago, when I had received and read your letter, and now better able to answer the remaining questions with this letter pad at my use, I now resume with continued sound mind, body, and soul and focus. I also reaffirm with my hand over my heart as I write this sentence, with my full and extensive access to all greater and ultimate knowledge, insights, and wisdoms from my strong connections with the cosmos, universe, Akashic records, and the entire of and beyond the multiverse. I speak to you both true and fact and direct and on the level." And then there's a little picture. Now, I have already answered the 4th and 6th questions in the enclosed note, which were in regard to lack of focus on the books, about my self-awareness of my faults, and so forth. I would not say that Chris adequately answered his lack of focus on his books, which I assume mean his Sonichu comic books. I think he kind of just skipped over that. The dimension merge, collective shift, and my second coming. While visually, you may or may not have witnessed obvious incoming or outgoing presences, physical, they have appeared and are happening as we speak right now. I'll spare the greater metaphysical truths and details, but suffice to state, there still remains a lingering veil that continues to be very tough to remove by great force prematurely. Its removal is set in divine timing to be removed upon the completion of my second coming, as detailed in the Bible's Malachi chapters 3 and 4. The merge itself is completed between universes 1218 and C197. It is one of the big 3 events, and it all can't be concluded until after the completion of all 3. The collective shift is the second and present event in progress. Second coming is the third. Not to avoid the hypothetical question, just offering the context at present. Now, hypothetically, for the merge not ever to go through in the greater conclusion is also to have the second coming never to happen. In that, there would not be a, "what would I do?" because I would have never existed during these modern years from 1982 to present. And, in the lack of my existence, you both and everyone else would have never existed now either. I encourage you both to deeply meditate and consult with the cosmos for yourselves, or ask any authentic, highly enlightened psychic or medium for the deeper details. So I'm guessing the question was, what would Chris do if the dimensional merge failed? And his answer is that the dimensional merge can't fail because it's happening in tandem with his second coming, and this is his second coming. Therefore, for it to not happen, he would have had to never exist. So that's a way of getting through his nonsense, I guess. But to put it in shorter terms, since my birth in Bethlehem in year 0, and after my obvious and physical ascension to the heaven realm, I had returned to Earth with my physical appearance changed and assuming a new identity, with continued immortal memories and so forth. I've continued to walk with everyone for centuries on continued guidance, observations, and divine missions, and I change myself time and again, even to internally and externally change my physical gender as well. Come the year 1389, and King Arthur commanded Merlin to exile all dragons, which ended up dividing the universe, putting me exiled from the non-magic able peoples as well, for a brief moment for me, but centuries for you all. My sudden mind, body, and soul interdimensional transport forward and back through time and space, landing me in my one reincarnation and rebirth on February 24th, 1982. So Jesus just kind of hung around for 1300 years, and then when the dimensional merge happened, he was temporarily cast into the other universe, and then just kind of walked back into our universe and went into Chris's fetus body. My father, now mother, Emmanuel, God above gods, herself, had been answering everyone's prayers and projecting my outdated visage from my stead from 1389, with my temporary exile to 2000, when I came of age. Once again, and started astral projecting, manifesting, and working with everyone once again. My exile in 1389 was my real leave from you all, and this life I live immortally in now is the foreshadowing, along with the reawakening, obviously, of the foretold second coming of mine. So, hypothetically, if there was no dimensional merge, there is no second coming, and without a second coming, I and all of you would not exist at all now. So what would I be doing? Same as you. Not exist. Moving on. My past and present views on those with mental illnesses similar to what I had been born in this life with. This is more personally existential in detail. Presently, I do not look down on anyone with autism, ADD, ADHD, OCD, and so forth. I have become more conscious and aware and most appreciative of all who had overcome these and even harder struggles. I have other autistic friends, Anna McLaren for one. My trigger had been in observation, and deep empathy and mirroring, of those who could not extensively function mentally. I have always felt really sorry for them. But direct that question to yourself. What if, in this timeline, you were as mentally incapable as that kid in a wheelchair, with the constantly tilted head and arched wrists? Or that constantly unconscious and mumbling young adult who greets everyone with a tough as 100-pound whop on their shoulder or head and can't help it? To me, putting myself in their plight empathetically is a trigger, but I also do appreciate that some of them, as well, manage to succeed in their individual way. Stephen Hawking, to name an obvious one. I also know that they do think and feel for themselves, but they can't fully express it or speak it clearly. I feel it most difficult and enduring, patient as I am, to be in their company for too long, because then my mind copies them, and then I'm left in that state of mind for a while. Just no good. I do not look down nor hate the similar or worse mentally challenged. I have a hard time with the worse mentally challenged. Be my mirror and reflect my plight while I mirror Timmy of South Park. I'm not laughing either. I feel better including everyone, especially when they continue to project positive vibes and emotions, as well as treating others kindly, compassionately, and respectfully as they treat themselves and their family and partners. I will not argue or dispute communities appreciating each other in a similar interest, attribute, or even flaw. I have not repeated the acronym with straight/cisgender in the main letters in years, and I was still in a learning phase then, socially. I like being inclusive and open-minded, simple as that. I believe this is in reference to when Chris created the SLGBT movement, where the S stands for straight, because as he said, he wanted to be inclusive. Not everything falls back on me being autistic. But when it did, it was an impulsive and flawed form of self-defense, because I was really heavily emotional during those times. A related topic: my dad, Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. Sonichu, throughout my life used to constantly spar to instigate an argument or trigger of mine. As if as a child, just saying and partly venting, going to wake up Robert Chu and Barbara and seeing his pantless boxer shortless exposed penis on display like a statue in a museum was not traumatizing enough at the time. Often, I hardly was able to easily counter or respect to his attempts at encouraging me to verbally argue or defend myself. On that aspect, I can fall back and blame the freaking autism as it was then. Excuse me? So I guess Chris was traumatized because he saw his father's penis when he was a child. I'm guessing that when he says that his dad tried to spar with him by instigating arguments and telling him to verbally argue and defend himself, that his dad was just trying to teach him to stick up for himself. Granted, Robert was very old-fashioned, and so at the same time, he may have gone overboard from what any of us would find acceptable. But who knows, this is the mind of Chris Chan, who thinks that his teachers were abusing him because they were trying to stop him from having a meltdown. But yeah, I did not verbally argue as much growing up, and it took facing the even tougher moments since 2000 and for me to actually formulate and speak better self-defenses with what is truth. Even in those times when the result was actually my fault, especially with all the truth bombs and Rosie Rosechu's post-intersex to female transition and Operation Nudes in the XX extended controversial version of my book number 8 in 2008. This is all in capital letters, by the way, I guess I should be yelling. Encyclopedia Dramatica Intoxicators. Yes, I am upset. Tested everyone as I was meant to... I tested everyone as I was meant to on divine missions from Emmanuel, and I got betrayed kissed again by Josh Moon as I did by Judas. Alright, so in the early days of the Sonichu comic, back when Chris was acting extremely homophobic, people would take his character of Rosechu and draw her with a penis, and this greatly upset him. Later in his life, when he became trans, he made it so that Rosechu's canon story was that she was in fact born male, but then transitioned to female using magic. He also, Sonichu number 8, if you're unaware, contains many nude scenes, including a nature documentary type section where he describes how Sonichus have sex. Encyclopedia Dramatica and Toxic Haters are just people who bullied him at the time. And he, of course, thinks that Josh Moon, the owner and operator of the Kiwi Farms, betrayed him like Judas did. Chris then writes, "Deep breaths. I apologize for that outburst. But I also feel it empathizes my point in response to your 5th question. I do take responsibility for slipping into the emotional outburst. Also, I never said Barbara was a god, but Emmanuel is my mother, as she was my father long ago. Emmanuel and Barbara are 2 separate individuals and souls." Yes, that makes sense. When he says mother and Emmanuel, he's referring to, like, his version of the theistic god. "And I am living in the now. I have been. I know who and what I am, was and always have been. And one moment at a time, in this body of mine, and astrally manifested between both Earths of 1218 here and of 1C211987. Thought that was going to keep going. Thought there was going to be another rhyme in there. Oh well. "Thank you," with persons' names, "for your questions. You have my consent and permission to share my truthful responses online, if you and blank feel well and wish to do so. I personally bless you both through this letter and directly from my soul. Go forth in peace and clarify by my power and glory as God. Be safe and well with lots of love. Mrs. Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu, the Goddess Blueheart and Lord Messiah, Savior and God of all." That was a lot, guys. And the last letter we'll be covering today is rather tame. The person is just white knighting and telling Chris that it's so cool that he's actually Jesus. They ask him how he's doing. This is Chris's response. "Thank you for the kindness and respect in your letter. Yours, outside of my attorney and Barbara, is the first letter I had received from a follower who lives in Virginia. Well, overall, and in short, the staff treat me well enough. At start, the genuine positive vibrations really, and he crosses out really, and spiritual energy really sold this place well. Then I've experienced the attitudes and bad habits from some of the real jerk-offs and really noisy neighbors after my body was relocated from medical to booking. But the food is mostly good, the commissary has good items on offer, and I've enjoyed the rec room a few times. This facility is 2 out of 5 stars. Christian rates jail 2 out of 5. I've hardly made friends here, but more like kind allies with the more positive staff, and I have continued to work in my goddess responsibilities and duties out of body. I am the full reincarnation of Jesus Christ, complete with all of the memories from year 0 to physical ascension to heaven, changed my appearance, and walked the earth more in my immortal life, living many different books of identities and lives, up till 1389 when the universe was divided, and I was fully transported forward and backward throughout time, space, and dimensions, to fly through the chaotic rainbow's apex in 2003, and then be reborn on February 24th, 1982. For those who are not familiar, Chris thinks that the 2 different universes, the 1218 and the C197, were split apart by King Arthur's court, which would have been in, like he said, the mid-1300s. He also believes that all the Sonichus were birthed in a rainbow in 2003, and that he also passed through that rainbow, which is why he's part Sonichu. I guess his father must have also passed through that rainbow, because his father is also supposedly half Sonichu. But because of the dimensional divide, that allowed his soul to pass backward through the rainbow in 2003, to then meet up with his conception in 1982. Although I guess he would be conceived in 1981 if he was born in February. So if Chris has all of the memories of Jesus, then he would surely be able to write a more detailed Bible than the one we have now, which was written by his followers. So maybe he should get on that instead of just writing these letters. Right, guys? Firstly, I do not look upon the term troll as a negative, as there are good troll/peoples and bad troll/people, and all have an innate want to patrol and observe/comment on others regardless. The ones that are wicked are the haters, fakers, and the darkest of demonics and sinners who are toxic to the majority. A lot of what has happened is happening right now with and all around you, and is to happen are covered between the last couple of books in the Old Testament of any Bible, as well as how I had described the dimension merge in early 2018. Although the whole picturesque event is popularly referred to as the Day of Judgment, this is actually comprised of the dimension merge, the recombining of the divided universe, which has been completed, the collective shift, relocating the majority of the recombined Earth of universes 1C211987 and this 1218 Earth here, that is in more spiritual progress and happening now, and my second coming, where I shall descend at my temple and fully, physically, relocate the majority to our recombined Earth, with the Sonichu Temple, as well as other selected buildings, artifact, statues, etc., leaving behind the toxic minority of the failing 1218 Earth to burn. He names the person and says, "Thou art among the neutral good, and shall transcend with everyone, so thou hath nothing to fear, especially as thou continues to be as good as possible as thou hath done so. Go forth in peace and clarity by my power, glory and authority as God." The person's name. "Be safe and well. Mrs. Jesus Christine Weston Chandler Sonichu, the Goddess Blueheart and Lord, Savior and Messiah and God of all." So that means that we're 1/3 of the way through Judgment Day. Apparently it's going to be picturesque, which is a word that Chris doesn't know what it means. It's beautiful, Chris. Beyond that, I wanted to talk about Geno. If you're watching any of my videos and you don't watch Geno, then...
what's wrong with you?
He's taking a break until sometime next year, and as always, I wish him the best of luck and success. A few weeks ago, he was featured on a podcast called Trash Taste, where he gave the hosts a very short summary of Chris's life. I've noticed that as people talk to normies about this situation, it's become extremely complicated to get the story straight. People have to mix in things like Chris's childhood and a Sonichu, and also what's happened recently in the Cell Saga, and keeping the timeline linear is very difficult. What I haven't seen widely reported about anywhere is that in this interview, Geno mentioned that he'd been reached out to by at least 2 American film companies.
Yeah. So you've always been really creating on YouTube for quite a while, really? Or just creating in general?
Yeah, I'm a compulsive creator.
Right. So is there like a next step of what you want to achieve after you're done with this documentary?
Interesting that you say that, because I did actually come in contact with 2
two producers involved with creating content for example, streaming services or even Hollywood, actually.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Concerning Christian, obviously.
oh wow.
But yeah, so they see my work and of course they see dollar signs after this recent debacle.
Oh God, yeah.
So, but yeah, so we're interested in maybe creating something. I'm not sure yet if it's possible, but yeah, either American Network or Netflix, Amazon, maybe streaming. I don't know.
About Christian.
About Christian.
Damn.
Oh.
He did not say anything about if they wanted his involvement or anything, or even if he wanted to be involved in such things. So don't go overboard on speculation and start claiming that GiBi told you that Geno's gonna write a Chris Chan movie, because that's not what's happening here. What this does tell us is that big companies are aware of the Chris story and are spending time and research on it. So there might be competing Chris Chan projects. This is something that's been discussed for years, like who would play Chris in a biopic of his life? Or how would they incorporate Sonichu into a story when it infringes on Sega and Nintendo's copyrights? Whenever it came up, it was usually in the context of something that would be made after Chris's death. This is very different. I can see this being more like Making a Murderer or Tiger King, which don't have the best reputation for being, good. So on one hand, don't get excited for any project because it probably won't be good. On the other hand, if you're against such a project, then don't get too worried because this still is not a real indication that anything will actually happen. Also, Barb turned 80 on October 1st. Happy late birthday. To summarize for people who just came here for reminders about the trial, she is currently living in their old house alone, which I've been told means that she's been deemed mentally fit. Although I've also been told that the bar for mental fitness is very low. What that does mean is that there's basically no chance that legally Chris did anything akin to rape. Remember, there is no video or audio recording allowed in the courthouse, and remember that this is not the trial, this is the hearing. Yes, Chris has been in jail for over 3 months before his hearing. So much for speedy and fair trials, am I right, guys? So I'll see you around the 18th. You can follow me on Twitter at GIBI_Devin for faster breaking news and also general nonsense. What you're seeing now is a time-lapse of my new profile picture, drawn by Mel the Honeybee. I'm super happy with it. If you like my Chris Chan coverage, you should check out my video that I did on Merlogic, and if you're new to Chris, then I suggest my Sonichu video, as well as Geno's documentary series. Thanks for watching.